Did you know the United States is paying to wage war against Russia? Is America really dumping chemical and nuclear waste in Ukraine? And is Parliament confiscating property in the Donbass? Welcome to StopFake, the place where we debunk disinformation about Ukraine. I'm Marko Suprun with this week's Set the Record Straight Digest. So let's get to it. Russian media announced last week that the United States will give Ukraine $250 million to wage war in the Donbass, citing a draft law on America's 2020 defense spending budget. RT, Komsomolskaya Pravda, Gazeta.ru, and others claim that the Pentagon intends to use Ukraine as a military buffer between the United States and Russia. The reports feature Russian experts who claim that by increasing defense aid to Ukraine, the U.S. Congress will turn Ukraine into a provocateur of Russia. The Russian experts also claim that by issuing aid to Ukraine, the U.S. Congress wants to unite the American electorate on the eve of the 2020 presidential election against the external threat personified by Russia. And now for the facts. According to the 2020 fiscal year National Defense Authorization Bill that was submitted to the Congress on June 12th, the U.S. plans on providing $250 million in defense aid to Ukraine. This money is not intended to wage war in the Donbass, as Russian publications falsely claim, but to provide security assistance and intelligence support to the government of Ukraine. The primary focus of this aid will be to strengthen Ukraine's naval capabilities in light of Russia's aggressive actions in international waters. Remember, in November 2018, 3 Ukrainian naval vessels crossing the Kerch Strait between the Black and Azov Seas were attacked, captured, and their crews were taken prisoner. They remain in Russian custody, and Moscow refuses to release them. The proposed bill submitted by the Senate Armed Services Committee has nothing to do with provoking Russia, as obsequious Russian analysts claim in pro-Kremlin media. The U.S. does agree that Ukraine and other Black Sea countries need to protect themselves from possible Russian naval attacks in the region. Earlier this year, Russian media gleefully reported that the U.S. had to cut aid to Ukraine and Kyiv would not be getting $700 million in U.S. assistance. But in fact, the U.S. has earmarked $695 million to Ukraine, according to U.S. Embassy Economic Counselor J.P. Schutt. These funds are intended for defense and security spending, as well as supporting economic and political reforms. This week, several pro-Kremlin publications featured stories claiming that the United States was disposing its chemical and nuclear waste in Ukraine. They all cited Edward Basurin, the police chief of the self-proclaimed and recognized by no one Donetsk People's Republic, who made this outrageous claim during a June 12 briefing. Illustrated with staged photographs of a ghoulish scarecrow and yellow drums marked with the International Radiation Hazard symbol, the stories report Basurin's claim that the U.S. is dumping its chemical and nuclear waste in Ukraine's northeastern Sumy province. He said this is being done according to a deal that former Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko allegedly made with the U.S. Department of Energy. StopFake asked the Ukrainian State Nuclear Regulatory Inspectorate whether a deal exists that would allow the United States to store its chemical and nuclear waste in Ukraine. In a written response, the state nuclear watchdog said no foreign nuclear or chemical waste has ever been brought to Ukraine, and that Basurin's claims and resulting Russian media reports were untrue. The Regulatory Inspectorate also pointed out that it was against Ukrainian law to bring any foreign radioactive waste into the country. Nuclear energy is a recurring theme in Russian fakes about Ukraine. StopFake has previously debunked Russian claims that Ukraine wants to resume cooperation with Russia in the field of nuclear energy. And the Kremlin looks poised to keep spreading nuclear fakes in the near future with its own mini-series about the Chernobyl nuclear power plant disaster that will allegedly blame American saboteurs for the 1986 accident. Stay tuned. Scores of Russian media reported last week that residents of Ukraine's Russian-occupied territories who have taken Russian citizenship will have their property seized. Russian media claim that Ukraine considers Donbas residents to be second-class citizens and accuse Ukraine of Russophobia and of inciting inter-ethnic strife between the two countries. On June 4th, Ukraine's parliamentary website noted that a bill was registered by Member of Parliament Oleg Musi to amend existing laws regarding the confiscation of property. In an interview with Hromadske Radio, he said he proposed changing the law in response to Russian President Vladimir Putin's decree granting Donbas residents the right to receive Russian citizenship through a simplified process because he believes this law will deter Ukrainians living in the occupied territories from adopting Russian citizenship. Ukrainian parliamentarians, willingly or not, have often been the source of Russian fakes about Ukraine. Now, this bill has not been considered by Parliament, and with parliamentary elections scheduled for the third week of July, it is highly unlikely that Parliament will debate and vote on the changes, and even less likely that the President will sign it into law. So Russian media reporting that Ukraine has adopted a law on confiscating property from Donbas residents is a deliberate manipulation and distortion of facts aimed at whipping up anti-Ukrainian hysteria both in Donbas and at home in Russia. That's it for this week. You can find much more dissected disinformation on the StopFake website. Be vigilant, look out for fakes, and if you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, send it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Marko Suprun, and this is StopFake. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.